Do you consider yourself to be pretty smart, a pretty smart individual, someone who's coping well with life but has a tendency to overthink at times? Well, in this video, I'm going to discuss that and shed a little bit of light on why smart people like you often overthink the most. So, get this, have you ever replayed a conversation over and over again in your mind, or perhaps someone looked at you slightly differently than usual and you sort of play it over and over again in your head? Or maybe they've sent you a slightly shorter text than normal, and again it goes round and around in your head. Or perhaps you lay awake thinking, why did I say that? I should have answered differently, or what if they meant something else? If that sounds familiar, of course, you're not alone in this. Today, I want to explain why some of the kindest, brightest people, thoughtful people, are often the ones who overthink the most. And more importantly, why overthinking almost never gives us the answers we're looking for. So, one of the most fascinating things about our brain is that it doesn't like unanswered questions. Our brains are prediction machines. They are constantly trying to work out what's going to happen next. Am I safe? Have I missed something important? When life feels uncertain, your brain naturally starts searching for the answers. So imagine reading a detective novel, but someone tears out the last chapter, the final chapter, the one that you've been waiting for. Wouldn't it drive you absolutely mad? You'd keep wondering, well, who did it? It's unanswered, isn't it? You'd replay those clues that had been going on throughout the book. You'd imagine different endings. That's exactly what our brain does with everyday life. If a friend doesn't reply, or if a boss says, can I have a quick chat with you tomorrow? Or if something seems a little quieter, or somebody seems a little quieter than usual, your brain desperately wants to sort out that uncertainty, so it starts filling in all the gaps. The trouble is, it often fills in those gaps with the worst case scenarios. Now, thinking, of course, is incredibly useful for us. Thinking helps us solve problems, learn new skills, plan holidays, make decisions. But overthinking is a bit different. Thinking moves us forward, of course, doesn't it? But overthinking makes us go round and around in circles. Some people call it a vicious cycle. It's rather like sitting in a rocking chair. You're moving, but of course you're not actually going anywhere. You replay the same old conversations, the same mistakes, the same worries again and again and again. Without noticing, you've stopped looking for solutions and you've started feeding that problem. Have you ever driven home after a meeting and thought, oh, I wish I hadn't said that, or I sounded ridiculous, or I bet they think I'm hopeless? Our brains replay conversations because they're searching for certainty. They're trying to answer questions like, did I get that right? Did I upset someone? Could I have done it differently? The problem is we almost never have all the information. We don't know what the other person was thinking. How could we? They're them. We're us. How could we know? We're not mind readers. We don't know what's happened in their day either. They could have had a really bad day, which means it changes the way that they operate. Yet our brain behaves as though it can solve any mystery, just like in that book. If it just thinks about it and thinks about it and thinks about it a little bit more, maybe for an hour, maybe for 2. But of course it can't. It can't solve it. Instead, it often starts creating a new story. And because anxious brains naturally focus on possible dangers and the negatives of this world, that story is rarely a happy one. And have you ever noticed that your biggest worries often arrive in the middle of the night? Maybe 2, maybe 3 o'clock in the morning. Everything suddenly at that time feels enormous. Everything's scary. It's dark for starters. And you start trying to solve tomorrow's problems, and then maybe even next month's problems, and maybe next year's problems. And here's why. When we're tired or stressed or overwhelmed, the thinking part of our brain doesn't work as efficiently. It the protective part of the brain just becomes louder and louder and louder. So instead of calmly solving a problem, we start imagining disasters. I'm sure you've noticed at some point that the exact same problem often feels much smaller after breakfast. So nothing has changed, of course, apart from you've had your breakfast. But your brain's changed. You've rested it. You've fed it. You've reset. Your thinking brain has come back online after that breakfast. That's why we often find ourselves saying, and I find myself saying, that 2 o'clock in the morning is one of the most terrible times to make life decisions. You're going to make bad ones quite often. And here's something many people find surprising. You can't usually stop thoughts from appearing, but you can decide what your brain spends time practicing. Imagine giving a very energetic puppy no toys, no walks, no interaction, and nothing to do. What happens? Well, what happens is that puppy will start chewing the furniture, chewing your shoes, chewing anything it can get its little teeth into. And your brain can be a little bit like that chewing puppy. If it doesn't have something meaningful to focus on, it often starts chewing on your worries instead. That's why it's so important to give your brain useful work to do. Notice what's going well today. Plan something enjoyable. Learn something new. Take a walk. Read a book. Have a conversation that makes you smile. Spend time doing things that gently absorb your attention. These activities aren't distractions as such. They're just reminders to your brain that life is bigger than that problem that it's been circling. The more often you do this, of course, the easier it becomes for your brain to step out of those repetitive loops, those negative repetitive loops. So the next time you catch yourself overthinking, I wonder if instead of asking, why can't I stop thinking? You say, is this thought actually helping me? Is this thought moving me forward? Or do I actually have any new information? If the answer is no, you may not have a thinking problem. You may simply have a wonderfully protective brain that becomes stuck in a loop, and the loop can be changed. So thank you so much for watching this. I hope it's helped you understand why overthinking happens and why it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. And if you enjoy learning about how your brain works in simple, practical ways, I'd love you to subscribe. And next time, we'll explore something many parents ask me about: why children melt down after school, even when they've been having a good day all day. And until then, remember, your brain is always trying to protect you. It just needs a little help to know when it's safe to let go. So until next time, be kind to yourself and be kind to your brain.